I need new music.
Discover new music now. JJO.
All right, everyone. Welcome to it. Another episode of Discover New Music. Joining me, a guy with lightning fast fingers. You know him as one of the guitarists for Lamb of God, Mr. Mark Morton. Mark, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Brock. Thanks for your time, man.
The new album from Lamb of God, ninth studio album, Omens. You guys dropped the eighth album, the self-titled Lamb of God, right after the pandemic hits 2020. Boom, everything shuts down. Idle time for the band, stuff that you're not really used to. However, from this idle time comes Omens. Is it safe to say or fair to say or ridiculous to say that maybe we wouldn't have this album if it wasn't for that downtime from the pandemic?
You know, that's probably a fair speculation. I think for my part, I never really stopped writing music. Mm-hmm. So even just because we just released a record, it doesn't mean I don't keep getting ideas and keep documenting and keep putting stuff together. But so we released self-titled and we couldn't tour on it. So the fact that we weren't able to go out and tour like we normally would, as you alluded to, we were home. And so, what does the songwriter, musician do when they can't tour? They write music. So that's really what we did. It was very natural given the context of the situation, but in terms of the fact that we weren't touring, that was definitely sped things up in terms of the next release for sure.
How long did the antsiness, or how long until the antsiness took over for one of you? Maybe you reached out to Randy, or Randy reached out to you. You're like, all right, we got to do something.
Yeah, it started with me and Willie, really. Our other guitar player. We're all in touch. We're all, friends outside of the band. So there was a lot of communication anyway. But me and Willie were both just kind of checking in on each other and like, man, I got a lot of stuff. Like, we should at least document this stuff and maybe do some demos and that kind of thing. So we brought in our producer, Josh Wilbur, very early in the process. And he just came out and we just made demos. And there was like no pressure. There was no timeline, no deadline. We just had all this material and we just sifted through it and started putting together cool ideas. It's nice to do it that way. It's not the first time it's been that way, but there have also been other times where it's like, okay, it's time. We have this window and we need a record by this point. Mm-hmm. It puts a different hue on everything.
I want to talk about the timeline here. We'll touch back on that, but you brought up your producer, Josh Wilbur. He's worked with so many great bands, including you guys collaborating with him since 2006. What kind of role does that consistency in a producer play in the sound that the band is going for?
I think for my part, my take on that is it just creates it just fosters a relationship over that amount of time. And in that relationship is a lot of trust. It's a lot of creative trust, a lot of personal trust. Josh and I are very close friends outside of any of the work that we do. But when we get into the studio together, I know that there's no such thing as a bad idea. I know that if I really feel strongly about something, he's going to hear me out and vice versa. And we kind of have this now sort of dynamic where usually, and I think the rest of the band probably has this feeling a lot as well too, where usually it's kind of, if you have a really strong opinion about something and I'm sort of on the fence, then I'm just going to defer to your opinion because I trust your artistry and you have the stronger opinion. So there's probably a reason behind that passion. It's things like that, that you build over time that you don't, I think, necessarily have that built in with a stranger or a new face, regardless of what their discography, might be when they come in the room. I think creatively, you need to have that kind of relationship, and that takes time to build.
Most of the album was recorded live in the same room, which honestly, with what everything was going on, it's kind of deferred from what most people are doing. Obviously, that's important to the band. Why was it important to have for this record, even with all the craziness going on?
I just think, going into this, sort of tying back into how we started the interview here, it was important to us to not make self-titled part 2. So when we started, and none of the material was left over, none of it existed, when self-titled album was released. But nonetheless, we just really wanted to shake up the snow globe, so to speak, and just really be in a different environment and in a different headspace all the way through this record, top to bottom. So we were just kind of brainstorming conceptually how we might put ourselves in that different space. And so that translated in this case to literally putting ourselves in the same space, recording the basic tracks all together. Of course, there were overdubs. Of course, there were fixes. Of course, I went through and Willie and I both, did clean takes of different parts of the guitar parts, in the control room and that kind of thing later. But the bones of the songs, the basic track, the cornerstone of the album was all done in the same room. And I want to including the vocals, which I don't know how much your audience knows or cares about making records, but vocals are never really done live with the band. It's always an overdub in the booth. But I would say well over half of the vocal takes that you hear on this album are from Randy's live takes, where he was in the booth right next to us while we were tracking live as a band, screaming away and singing away. And those takes just wound up having that special energy, that urgency. And I think it helped him to know that we were all in it together. And it just really, we're very in our element live. It's a different kind of energy. So I think some of that was captured in the actual takes that you hear on the album.
Madison Solid Rock 94.1 JJO and JJO Discover New Music. Our guest this week is Mark Morton of Lamb of God, talking to us about the band's new release, Omens. Now, going back to something you kind of touched on a little bit, the kind of pace behind this album. And you said you and Willie got together, you had some music, you're always kind of writing, but you were kicking it around, and then Omens got going. That different pace, that slower pace, which you've mentioned has happened a few times before, but in the run and gun world of producing and touring and making albums, there's a lot of action happening. Does that slower pace, I mean, do you see the benefits of that? Is it something that changes the way you put stuff together?
Yeah, I think I see the benefits in it. I think it comes, like most things, there are potential pros and cons. I think, you take, for example, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy, which, by the way, is a great album and a great band and incredibly talented people. Like, this is not like a dig, but that album took however many years to complete, because it's like, when are you really done? And I think it's easy as creatives, as artists, to get in that headspace where we just keep refining and keep adding new details and keep synthesizing new ideas to incorporate, and that's part of the creative process. So I think you can overdo it if you take too much time. Sometimes you can kind of slow yourself up. And so there's something to be said for committing and to trusting your artistry and just, doing something very immediate and urgent and capturing that and letting it live like it is. But there's also, something to be said for having time and letting the songs gas off a little bit so you can really see them for what they actually are and hear them with fresh ears. I'm really still, to this day, always astounded when I'll make a demo or record something and it's become really part of my process now. I'll put it away for a month and a half and won't mess with it, and then I'll come back and listen to it and I hear it in a different perspective because I'm not so in the middle of it. I'm not so attached to it. So I think, really there are benefits and liabilities to both sort of concepts. I've been doing this a long time, so I just, I try and manage all of those things and try and consider them, given whatever the landscape we're working in is.
Again, Lamb of God, the new album Omens, it's out now. Do you maybe have a favorite track on there, Mark? One that really speaks to you?
Yeah, it's tricky because I feel like you always strive for this, but I think one of the bullseyes we really hit on this particular release is that each song really does occupy its own unique space and serve its own purpose. And I try and think of it as, casting a play. You don't want three leading ladies, you don't want four villains, because you just want one and to do it the best and then have the cast support around all that. So, each playing their own role uniquely. So I feel like this track list does that very well. For me, I think some of the most kind of emotion producing songs are Ditch and September Song, the last song on the record. That's a really special one. Yeah, those two are standouts for me, I think. But it changes. You ask me next week, you'll get a different answer probably.
Yeah, it's always I ask everyone that when it comes to new records because obviously it's so fresh and songs that you've just spent so much time and energy on, and it's interesting to see if maybe there's one that really, really stands out. I love that you just got that 2-minute, 38-second burner track with Denial Mechanism. I feel like that's Randy's punk roots maybe coming through. I don't know, but
it's Randy's definitely the punk rocker in the band, and that's a song that I kind of directed musically, and it was very, very late in the process. So we had maybe 8 or 9 songs that we knew were going to be in strong consideration for the album, and we just needed a couple more to throw in and have some dynamic, and that's where Grayscale which was a Willie submission. That's a very kind of hardcore influence song. And Denial Mechanism was from me, which is a very kind of rootsy punk rock thing. And we were just kind of taking wild card swings, trying to throw some interesting flavor into the mix. And both those songs added that kind of element.
Well, if you have time, now that we've got the important stuff out of the way, can we do rapid fire and then I'll let you get going?
All right. I don't know what I'm in for here, but take it away.
Let's just put it this way. There's no wrong answers. You just go with what your gut tells you. All right. All right. First one. Would you rather hit your funny bone or stub your toe?
Get my funny bone.
Cool Ranch or nacho cheese Doritos?
I'm going to go with the classic nacho cheese.
Nacho cheese. Ballsy choice. Hot air balloon or hang glider?
Hang glider.
Would you rather see Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster?
Probably Loch Ness Monster.
Okay. You have to fight one, either the cast of the Golden Girls circa 1988, and they all have those souvenir baseball bats, like the little ones, or you have to fight the Little Rascals, and they all have prison shanks.
I'll take the old ladies.
Old ladies, nice. Take the old ladies. That's what I'm going to make as the quote for this interview. Mark Morton, I'll take the old ladies. I love it. Last one. Last one. What was more nerve-wracking? 2007 Download Festival, 72,000 fans, or when Axis played Battle of the Bands, Stockwood, 1988?
Easy, very, very easy answer, Axis. Times 100. I was absolutely terrified.
How old were you then when you guys took the stage at Stockwood?
I think I was 15. If I was 16, I was barely 16.
Oh, man, I love it. By the way, there's a wonderful photo of Axis at Stockwood. If you ever get a chance to look it up, it's delightful.
It's pretty great. I got a Cinderella T-shirt on.
Do you still have the Cinderella T-shirt? Please tell me yes.
I don't, but I don't have it, but I still love Cinderella.
Oh, my God. I love it. Mark, thank you for humoring me. You're a rock star, dude, and we appreciate it. Again, everyone, Lamb of God, the new album, Omens. Go get it. Mark, thank you so much, man.
I appreciate you, man. Take care.
This is the JJO Discover New Music Podcast. Listen, rate, share, subscribe. Discover new music now at WJJO.com, in the JJO app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Brock has a new interview every Thursday evening between 6 and 7. 94.1 JJO.